So wahine tahua, mana nui, pono nui, e noho ana mai tātou atua, he tātou tipuna, ka whi ana mai tātou kōrero, me tēnei rā, tipu nui o tō mana, I tawa kōrero, me tēnei rā.
I'm just feeling very humble that the Wairua has brought us together, and our ancestors have, initiated this kōrero and this MiriMiri meeting. I'd just like to ask them to bless our voices, especially mine, that my voice will be a voice for our people, for the sick, for the lost, for the lonely. Let my voice be their voice, and channeling in that beautiful energy, that the Wairua energy, through all facets of my whatuana manoa, humanoa, and my manoa, comes over that aloha rainbow of light that comes over us, and just let it descend upon us, and we step forth in that aniwa niwa.
And today we have Katerina Ihaia. Thank you for being here. So Katerina, you work under Meilani Massage, and you studied Ako Torowhānui, the Māori Healing training that we did last year. And you are originally doing Hawaiian Shamanic Bodywork, so we really look forward to hearing about that. But you guys are going to be having a Koha Healing Day in Pilbara, which is really exciting, and I look forward to talking about that later. But first, I'd love to hear, Waikwe, who are you?
My name is Katerina Ihaia. My mum comes from the north, Ngāpuhi. She's Te Mahurehuri, and she, her mum is from Paihia, Ngāti Kapatai. My dad is Ngāti Maniapoto, so I affiliate with Ngāti Maniapoto, Ngāti Raukawa, Ngāti Takanawa. Those are my pos, my ancestors. I was drawn into healing more when mum was dying of cancer. She was diagnosed with severe bowel cancer, and there was nothing they could do. I watched my mum die from chemotherapy. At the back of my mind, thought, there's got to be something more than chemotherapy. And mum wasn't ready then for any holistic treatments. Watching mum and her body decay was my catalyst into the healing arts, and I always sat every night watching her, thinking, what else? There must be something else. So when she passed, I went into I had to go through that grieving process, as you do, and then I came back to Australia, and I went to a lady was doing the Hawaiian Healing massage, and I went and watched, and I wanted to do that. There was something beautiful about that. So I went and trained. You have to, of course, train, if you're going to be operating in Australia, you have to have that tohu. So I went and trained at La Trobe University in Melbourne, up in Wodonga, and through the Australian College of Massage. So that was my initiation really into the healing arts. Fast forward a few years, and I met a Reiki master up on Barra Island where I worked, and I said to her, I was actually studying shamanic healing from South America then. I was studying under Alberto Valoldo. He owns the Light Body School in California. And I was doing correspondence, studying. Always wanted to go there and go to Machu Picchu, go to Lake Titicaca, go and do the shamanic trails. And she said to me, no, you're actually going to Hawaii. And I went, Hawaii? Oh. So I thought, I'll just let that seed settle and plant in me. And I found these two hippies. They looked really cool, and I thought, I really like them. Like the guy had long plaits, and the girl was all like flowers in her hair. And I thought, I really like these two. I want to go study with them because they look really cool. And they actually founded the Hawaiian Shamanic Bodywork, and they operate off the island of Kauai in the jungle. So we trained. It was no formal classroom, and there was no technology. Everything was by word of mouth, by prayer, because they do everything in prayer, and karakia, and they do everything by chanting. They chant massively, like It's like, oh my gosh. So we went to all the sacred sites on Kauai, did our training, and it was absolutely amazing. The last day, came to the last day, and you get to meet the kahunas. And I met Kahuna Harry, Uhane Jim. And we were all, like little kids waiting for us because we were getting a Hawaiian name. We were like all little kids waiting around, and he called me first, and I was like, oh my gosh, he called him. I was like, oh, like a little kid. And I went up, and he went, oh, how that, and I was like, oh. So he gave me the name Meilani, which means when people come to me, that I'm like a lake, a crystal clear lake, and they can see themselves in me fully healed. So I love that name. So I took that name, and I was on my way back to Australia. But prior to me leaving, he goes, do you have a business? And I went, no, I don't. And he goes, well, you will have a business when you get back to Australia. And you will go and you will work in a spa type area till you are confident enough and healed enough to establish your business. So I went, oh, okay. Like I take things so literally, and it became quite childlike in my thinking, because I was blessed enough to be the student and humble enough to say, okay. So I came back to Australia. Within a week, I was working in this magnificent spa on the Gold Coast. The Hawaiian Shamanic Bodywork was brought to us to the Western world, and it was brought by Kahuna Abraham Kauai, and he taught us, and it was really surreal, because they told me that Kahuna Abraham had brought me to Hawaii to train, and I couldn't grasp that. I was like still in student mode, and I was like, they were telling me all these things, where I came from, how that I was brought here, what my future would hold, and I was like absolutely in awe. And it's a little bit of a journey about me, but I am a mummy, I'm a whaia, I'm a nana, 4 mokos. I've got mokos in New Zealand. I've got another moko coming, and he's coming in May. So I have many hats that I wear. At the moment, I am Katerina, owner, founder of Meilani Massage, student of Ako Torowhānui Healing. Yeah, that Gabrielle. I was very, very blessed to find you.
The other piece I wanted to ask was around Meilani and that reflection of our healing. Sometimes, though, can that be a reflection of people's pain?
Sometimes it does. It's like they see their pain in you. It's like they see their grief in you, and a lot of people are a bit. She's been there. She knows what I'm suffering. It's like they recognize that they see the pain, but they also see the healed trauma. I have to go in very carefully, and that's why the lomi lomi is a good place to start, because it's gentle. You gain their trust and go in a bit. It's like the ocean coming in very gently, and then when they trust the ocean, you go in deeper, come out again, and you go in deeper again, and then you go in with the romi. A lot of people aren't ready for the romi straight up, and we know that they feel comfortable. Okay, we go deeper. Are you coping with this? Shall I go deeper? Yes. I'm very honoured to have all that. It's like a smorgasbord of healing modalities that you can offer your client, and it each and every part of them would resonate with what the healing they need. And the deepest, of course, I find is the grief. The grief takes a little while to get to that part, because that part is like the lost part of you, encompassing all those modalities. I feel it's important to grasp that. But I know that when I do the kahuna massage or the lomi lomi massage, the kahuna is like the romi, in that it's a more intense in the way that the energy moves. The lomi lomi is more feminine, like the MiriMiri. So I kind of link them both together, because I just think they each individual modality has its own respect.
Yeah, I feel that strongly too. Some people like to stick with one modality, but I feel like if you have a toolkit and you know that toolkit will support that person best at this time, like draw on that and offer that from your heart, just deeply to them.
Yeah. But the healing part, it's like you could write a book about it, Gabrielle, and you would know that every person is different, every wairu is different, every client is different. But it's like being really sensitive to what spirit wants to do with that person. Sometimes if I feel they're not ready, I call them back. And I've learnt, like studying under you, Gabrielle, to stay in that whakanoa state. It's very important, because you don't learn that in other modalities. You don't learn to hold back and let that spirit flow. So I find that a huge difference after training with you and then coming back and then going again, because you stand back and you just see that aloha light just come in. It's like so intense and so strong. It's like they almost lift your client up and hold them in their energy, and you're just there. You're just the quiet observer. Do you find that, Gabrielle? You're just the observer.
Yeah, I find it shifts for me at different times, and as I go along my journey, but as I can hold more, it also shifts more where I move to. But I definitely found when I got that grasp of like, oh no, energy, literally being the bridge and holding open the sacred, holding open that journey to rangiatia, like the highest heavens, while being the body.
So we're like the tipidity, the bridge, the rainbow bridge. Take my clients through different stages of healing, like that 1 to 3, early teens, and then the late going into their 30s. And a lot of them have massive trauma suffered in that 3 to 5-year-old. And then we go back and we gather that sacred part of them and bring them back. And that integration is beautiful. I speak them through it so that they know. And then when I'm still doing MiriMiri after we've finished the treatment, and then they'll tell me, oh, you're right, I had something happen when I was 3, like I lost a parent, I lost a grandparent, something very sacred happened to them, so they locked that child away. So that's what I've been encompassing in my healings the past, since I've been back from Perth, actually.
Oh, that's beautiful. And I also find, like, psychologically, even if there wasn't a specific trauma, that 3-year-old age is where you go from thinking that your parent is you to having the individuation. So even if something happens where the parent wasn't able to be that solid energy, there can be a trauma in that at that age.
I find that in a lot of women that have had to do fly in, fly out husbands. It's in them. They've had to be the mum and the dad, so they've had to step into both roles. I find that a lot of women that have moved up here are finding it hard to integrate back to just being the mum, but the children have had that father go, so they have a father wound. So the father wound, the mother wound, and the mother wound can something as easy as mum going to work and dropping me off. You know, you don't realise how deep that wound goes. So I'd like to share a little bit about my healing with the Romi, if you don't mind, especially down in Perth. I think this is an integral part of, you don't know what the Romi is, you can't really explain it to people unless you've experienced it. When I was in Perth, all my way of thinking about the Romi got thrown out the window because, no, I think the Romi is the most integral part of healing that we all need. Wow, it's just, can't even explain it. But with me, I had deep-seated grief, like so deep, it infiltrated into my major organs. And it wasn't until I was on the table with you were there, and I can't remember the other girls, but it was like this big, massive grief just left. It came up, and I actually saw it go, thinking, wow. I had a shaman say to me, you got to get that sent to you before it goes into the chambers of your heart. And then it wasn't until that happened that I realised what he was saying. So it infiltrates into your heart, into the chambers, and it can distort your thinking. And it can lead to addictions. It can lead to promiscuity. It can lead to alcoholism. It comes from grief. So it has all its friends, anger, the ones you feel like you've been left, you feel abandoned, all those that are associated with grief. And it's like the mother wound, right from back to when we that cut that cord, they cut the cord from our mother we lose all our nourishment. We may, if we go on the breast, a lot of us went straight onto the bottle, so we lose that nourishment. So we grow, and our mother wound, haven't got that connection anymore. It grows, and it can become an entity of its own, because your mother wound, you've been abandoned. So it affects your relationships with women. It affects your relationship with your mother, with older woman, and unless you have that healed, it infiltrates and it affects you in relationships. So rather than come from a heart that's healed, you come from a heart that's still grieving. So when that got taken off of me, and it was huge, it was the biggest, most profound healing that I've ever experienced. And I know now, okay, that was grief. Was so grateful for that. It was huge for me, so huge that I couldn't carry on in the classroom. And I'm very grateful for that beautiful wahine that took me down to the water.
Because you sense the importance of those moments where everything's in alignment, like where you're ready and we're ready and everything meets. It's just like, those moments are life-changing and allow us, and that for me, that's why I love being a practitioner as well, because you get to witness those magical moments, but you also get to witness, as you say, that unfolding and the trust building that sometimes takes place before that takes place as well.
But it was absolutely, mind-blowing, and unless you've experienced that. But I'll come back to the trust. If you trust your practitioners, you'll let us go deep. And that's the main thing, is opening yourself up, knowing that the wairu is going to go in deep. But the romi keeps working. Even when you're off the table, the romi keeps working. It doesn't stop. The romi, it keeps pure. It's like it keeps purifying that area, because you can imagine this whole, like something massive got taken out. So that there's like after things that will come up, there'll be a trigger that'll come up, and you'll think, wow, I would have reacted differently. But the romi keeps working, that energetic flow, changing that DNA, going right into your cellular level. So it keeps changing, and it works until forever, I believe. It never stops. And that's the beauty of the romi.
But it changes the DNA and the whakapapa, I believe.
Yes.
It's actually changing your history as well. So it's realigning the patterns of the whole whānau and the whole family line. So in a way, your memories start to change too. So something, that something happened, but the charge is just so different. And it's not impacting you in the same way.
When you do tell the story again, you come from another perspective. You come from a healed perspective rather than a perspective. So that pattern and that story, it's different now. And yes, it has come to teach me. And people go, that people can't comprehend that unless they've been through that. But that's what the romi does. It changes your DNA, right? Ooh, massively. Changes your DNA. So whatever happens stops here. So the healing, the romi can go back generations. I'm talking generations, going right back. So that the healing changes. We change. The romi is the bomb.
Because I feel like in other practices they say, it goes 7 generations back and 7 forward. Romi goes like way further back than that, because you touch further than that generations. And that can be a little overwhelming sometimes, because more than 7, well, at least in Aotearoa, New Zealand, that's sort of when colonization happened, was 7 generations back. But it goes before that, and that texture and that vibration is unfamiliar to us in this current time. And it doesn't, for me, when I touch it, it's not a good or a bad, but it is a different texture, and it takes some practice to get used to moving with. So
and I love that too. I love that, and I don't say 7 anymore. I used to. I feel it goes right back to when the romi feels to stop. I just love that. But I explain to my clients now, romi is like, if you look at a beautiful cloak, and you see somewhere there's something wrong with it, if the pattern is misaligned or the pattern is wrong, romi goes into there and actually takes that out, but with a lot of integrity and a lot of mana. And then it's up to us as practitioners to take it out properly. And I always give that imperfection to the ancestors. I don't just throw it to mother. I don't believe we should throw it to mother. I always take that imperfection out, and then I give it to the ancestors to take it to properly, and I fold it. It's like a korowa you fold up and you give it to them, and they'll mirimiri and romi it, cleanse and purify it. The romi will change that pattern back to where it should be. Yeah.
Oh,
that's cool, eh? Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
I learned that off you. I loved how, I can't remember her name, but one of our practitioners got to connect with her ancestors. She's never known that, and she connected, and it was just beautiful to watch. You know, a lot of people need to do that. A lot of people, you know, and I always get my clients to connect with their ancestors, because they hold our stories, and we are their legacy. You know, we are their legacy moving forward, and as we heal, they heal. I love that. She connected.
And what would you say to people who maybe have a difficult relationship with their tipuna, or have heard stories about, say, abuses or trauma, and don't know how to trust their tipuna?
I bring it back to themselves and the point now, you know. So they have to learn to trust themselves, and then build that trust, and then trust. Yeah, because a lot of them have had horrific incidences or traumatic events with their tupuna. And I bring in, when they're like that, I always bring in someone that they trust, and I bring in the guardians of the halau, and they're like little children, like, well, what are those? So I'll make it like a simple game for them, and then they look at it childlike, because when they're on the table, the kahunas teach you that, you know, they're like a newborn. Treat them as such. You know, wrap them in your love and your aroha, deepest aloha, wrap them up, and then go from there. But when you combine the four modalities, it's like you go with what is best for that person at that moment, building that trust again, building that trust with me first, and then building that trust. It goes out like a wave, energetic vibration.
So, and I also often feel that the tipuna who are first showing themselves to me are coming for their own healing too. So it's sort of that, languaging it in a way that they can, the person on the table or on the floor can call in their guides assigned to them from the highest heavens that need to support them in the healing today or in that moment.
So you get to the stage where, like say, you gain their trust, and they've come and they've had a healing, entities come up. You have to let all the light in for them to shift or move. So you have to gain that trust in your practitioner. Wasn't pretty. Look, Romi ain't pretty, you know. Romi is staunch. It's like a volcano that erupts under your skin, and you can't stop it. No matter what you try and do, you can't stop it. You know, so I'm trying to sound professional, but this thing was like looking at me. You know, like, you know, there are times when the heavy energies come up, and that's when you bring in the romi, because the romi's like, and the heavy energies come up, and they're like looking at you, and you just take a step back and let the energies take it. Once again, they take it with a lot of integrity, because that's still an integral part of that person. You know, they didn't even know that was there. It's distorted their thinking once again, coming in through trauma. That's what I believe. That's how they get in. That's how they sneak in. Oh, this person's suffering here, I'm going to get in there and latch on. So I've learnt up here, you have to be careful where you go. There's a lot of very sacred areas here in the whole world, actually. Just be careful where you tread, you know, that you ask permission. Same with asking permission to a person's body. You know, may I have permission to take that off? So I talk to my clients, say, look, this has shown itself to me. This is something that needs to come out today. Are you happy with me to take it today? And then I'll take it and cut its neck. But I love watching Anaru Payne, how he said, when he said to that person that interviewed him, you know what they taught you in school? Romi is the complete opposite. Wow, he just said it straight out, and that's what I tell my clients. Romi is nothing like you've ever experienced before, but it's just pure wairua, going in there, going right into your cellular memory and pulling it out.